Hey, Nomad, you still with us?
Nostalgia is a funny thing. One moment, you're reminiscing about how games used to be, and the next, you're trying to remember the name of that one game with the insanely hard boss fight or the ridiculously overpowered weapon. Some games stay with us forever, but others, they quietly fade away, buried under sequels, remakes, or just plain bad luck. We're unearthing 5 legendary games that might have slipped your mind, but definitely left their mark. And spoiler alert, this list might stir up some debates. Let's jump right in.
The dragon sword. So your father is still in the sacred wilderness?
Yes. He has entrusted me with the sword while he continues his training.
When it comes to legendary action games, you'd think Ninja Gaiden would never leave the conversation. But here we are, with one of the most iconic and brutally challenging series in gaming history, feeling like it's disappeared into the shadows. Whether it was on the NES or the Xbox, Ninja Gaiden wasn't just about playing, it was about survival. This game didn't care if you thought you were good. It wanted to prove otherwise. I've got a story for you. Back in the day, I thought I was a pretty solid gamer. I mean, I even beat the original Ninja Gaiden, which still sits on the throne of hardest games ever. But when Ninja Gaiden hit the Xbox, it took things to a whole new level. I was so mad, so unbelievably mad. At one of the bosses, I took the game out of my console, got in my car, and threw it out the window while driving, right into the river, or maybe near it. I don't even know, but I felt better. And you know what's crazy? A couple of weeks later, I bought the game again. Beat it. Redemption. But that's Ninja Gaiden for you. It pushed you to your limits. The combat wasn't just fast, it was precision in motion. Every attack, every block, every dodge had to be earned. It wasn't just about flashy swordplay. It was a test of patience, timing, and pure grit. So why has it faded? The last mainline game, Ninja Gaiden 3, didn't exactly win over fans. Then came Yaiba, Ninja Gaiden Z, a spin-off that, let's just say it's not remembered fondly. And while games like Dark Souls and Sekiro now carry the torch for punishing difficulty, Ninja Gaiden's absence is felt. But here's the thing. Ask anyone who played it, and they'll tell you the same thing. Ninja Gaiden wasn't just a game you beat. It was a game that beat you back, and that's why it's unforgettable.
My name is Alex Mercer. They call me a killer, a monster, a terrorist. I'm all of these things.
If you were an edgy teenager back in the late 2000s, there's a damn good chance you had Alex Mercer as your profile picture on MySpace. Or Facebook, if you were ahead of the curve. Prototype was chaos incarnate. It threw you into a Manhattan overrun by mutants and said, "Here, have superpowers, go wild." And wild you went. Prototype had everything a teenager could ask for. Speed, destruction, and a brooding anti-hero who could shapeshift into monstrous weapons. One moment, you're running up skyscrapers. The next, you're hurling cars at helicopters and slicing through enemies with razor-sharp claws. It was all about being the ultimate wrecking ball, and man, did it deliver. But Prototype wasn't just mindless chaos. It had crazy layers of story. You played as Alex Mercer, a man trying to piece together his past while wielding powers that could level the city. The gameplay loop? Addictive as hell. The symbiote-like abilities made every fight a playground of mass destruction, and the freedom to zip through the city at lightning speeds kept it fresh. Honestly, it's the closest thing to Spider-Man's traversal we had back then. Here's the thing, Prototype's sequel didn't hit the same highs. It was good, sure, but it just didn't pack the raw impact of the original. Then came games like Spider-Man and Batman, Arkham Asylum, and suddenly, Prototype was quietly pushed into the background. For me, I always understood why people loved this game. The speed, the destruction, it was everything players wanted back then. I enjoyed it too, even if the chaos sometimes felt a little over the top. But when it clicked, oh, it clicked. And if you were there for it, you know exactly what I mean.
Hey, listen up, gentlemen. Intel reports a significant military presence on the island. We have the element of surprise, so let's use it.
When Crysis launched, the big question wasn't, is it fun? Oh, it was. But the real question was, can your PC even run the damn thing? Funny story, when I first played it, I was barely scraping by. I don't even remember what graphics card I had, but I was running it at, I don't know, 15, maybe 20 frames per second, maybe less. Over the years, as I upgraded my rig, Crysis became my personal benchmark. Every time I got a new graphics card, I fired it up to see if I could finally hit the holy grail of 60 frames. And with my most recent card, the RTX 4080, I finally feel like I've slayed the beast. But it wasn't just about the graphics. That opening mission, unforgettable. You hit the water, swim to the shore, and everything feels alive. I'm talking turtles, trees, the works. I spent way too much time messing around, shooting branches, hurling turtles through the air, and just soaking it all in before even starting the mission. That was the magic of Crysis. It wasn't just about objectives, it was about experimenting and playing your way. And then there was the nanosuit. Cloak to sneak past guards, armor up to tank bullets, or speed mode to blitz across the battlefield. It gave you the freedom to approach every fight the way you wanted. My personal favorite, speed mode. I was basically Sonic, zipping through the map at 100 miles an hour, leaving chaos in my wake. The characters, Nomad, Prophet, and Psycho, added another layer to the experience. They weren't just filler, they brought personality and made the story feel grounded, even amidst all the chaos. The freedom this game gave you was unmatched. Sneak through the jungle, go loud with a rocket launcher, or mix it up. It was all your call. The story? Okay, it wasn't groundbreaking. Aliens invade, humanity fights back. But I'm a sucker for anything with aliens, so this hit the sweet spot for me. And while the sequels, especially Crysis 2, leaned more linear and lost some of that open-ended magic, they were still great in their own right. Let's not forget that Crysis 2 had a soundtrack by Hans Zimmer. Oh my god, it was good. We're all still waiting to see if Crysis will make a comeback. But for me, it was more than just a benchmark. It was a crazy playground, a game I didn't just play but kept coming back to, pushing it further each time. If you were there, you know the feeling. And if you weren't, trust me, you missed something special. Even now, whenever I hear "Can it run Crysis?" I still get those little butterflies.
Execution. Former Grant City police officer Jack Slate, arrested and convicted for the shooting spree that led to the death of known philanthropist Augie Blatz, is currently living out his last day in the death row cell block.
Dead to Rights might not be the first game that comes to mind when you think of action titles, but back in the day, it brought a unique mix of gritty storytelling and over-the-top action that made it stand out. You play as Jack Slate, a cop turned vigilante, armed with nothing but a gun and a thirst for justice after his father's murder. What made this game special was its variety. It wasn't just about shooting, though let's be real, the bullet time mechanic was a standout. You also had raw, gritty, hand-to-hand combat that felt like an arcade beat-em-up. Think Streets of Rage, but nastier. And then there was Shadow, your trusty canine sidekick, who wasn't just for show. Shadow could disarm enemies and grab weapons for you. Having a dog that's just as much a part of the action as you, that's badass. But Dead to Rights didn't stop at combat. This game had puzzles, mini-games, and some surprisingly creative levels. One moment you're in a massive shootout, and the next, you're defusing bombs like Jack Bauer. It sounds random, but somehow, it worked. Now the story? Total cop drama cliche. Corrupt officials, shady mob bosses, all straight out of a B-movie. But honestly, that's part of its charm. It didn't take itself too seriously, and sometimes, that's exactly what you need in a game. Sadly, the series didn't keep up the momentum. The sequel was alright, and the PSP spin-off didn't really grab anyone's attention. But for those who played the original, it's still remembered as a fun, non-stop action game. Dead to Rights may not be a household name, but it's the kind of game that surprises you with how much fun it is. If you missed it back then, it's worth taking a spin if you can.
They were all dead. The final gunshot was an exclamation mark to everything that had led to this point. I released my finger from the trigger, and then it was over.
If Dead to Rights was a fun, over-the-top action ride, Max Payne was its darker, grittier cousin. When it launched, it wasn't just about the gunplay. It was about atmosphere, story, and a protagonist whose life was ripped apart. I remember playing Max Payne not long after it came out, and it felt different. The bullet time mechanic was a big deal. You'd dive in slow motion, guns blazing, feeling like an action movie star, but that wasn't what hooked me. It was the story. Max's pain felt real, like something straight out of an HBO crime drama. The voice acting, top-notch. The cinematics, styled like graphic novels, brought everything together in a way I hadn't seen before. The game's world pulled you in, from seedy New York back alleys to nightmarish hallucination sequences. It wasn't afraid to get weird, but it all served the narrative. For me, what really stood out was how much care went into the storytelling. I expected bullet time to steal the show, but it turned out to be just one piece of a much bigger, much better game. Max Payne is on this list because it proved action games could have heart, depth, and a story that sticks with you. And with the remakes of the first two games on the horizon, there's no better time to revisit this classic. When Killzone 2 was first announced, it was the talk of the PlayStation 3. Everyone saw the reveal trailer and went nuts. People thought it was actual gameplay. Spoiler alert, it wasn't. But when the game finally dropped, it still looked insane. This was probably the best-looking game of its time. Helgen felt alive, from the stormy skies to the war-torn cities. It was gritty, dark, and set a tone that sucked you in. And you know what? The gameplay was surprisingly good. I went in expecting just another shooter, but what I got was heavy, deliberate gunplay that made every shot feel important. The story hit hard too. Sev, the main character, really grew on me. He wasn't just another faceless soldier, he had depth. And the villain, whoever was behind that performance, nailed it. The acting in this game, especially from the bad guy, was top tier.
Refuse us our rightful place in the universe, then we will unleash.
Now, the multiplayer, I'll admit, I didn't touch it right away. I think it was about a year after release when I finally jumped in, and man, I wish I'd done it sooner. The class-based system, the objectives that changed on the fly, it was all so good. Honestly, it was super underrated and easily one of the best multiplayer experiences on the PS3. Killzone 2 had hype and it delivered. From the graphics to the gameplay, the story, and that multiplayer, it's one of those games that sticks with you. Sev and the fight for Helgun? Yeah, I'll remember that for a long time. And there you have it. 5 legends who reshaped gaming before slipping into the shadows. But the question is, are they really forgotten, or do they still live on in our memories? If Alex Mercer made you feel unstoppable, or Nomad made you rethink strategy, now's the time to let the world know. Drop a comment below and tell us, who would make your list of forgotten legends? And hey, if you're feeling nostalgic, hit that like button and subscribe because we're diving even deeper into gaming's lost icons.